Welcome back to our course on FinTech, regulation, and security. We're going to talk today about computer security, and particularly from the perspective of data and technologies to protect your data to make it more secure. We have with us Dr. Hilton Chan, who is today an adjunct professor at HKUST, along with me, teaches a course on FinTech, but also is the CEO of a FinTech company, ENAC, FinTech.
Right.
So, Hilton, you have a strong background in cybersecurity. What's your prior position or role that you worked in that related to cybersecurity?
Oh yeah, before I set up my company, I have served in the Hong Kong police for over 23 years. And I set up the technology crime, and I set up the computer forensic labs, and also dealt with a lot of hacking cases, industrial espionage cases, etc.
And at our university, you set up or helped to set up a master's program in forensics and crime.
Yes, computer forensics and crime investigation,
Yeah.
especially cyber crime investigation.
So you've been working in this area for a long time, and you're pretty much a world-class expert in this area, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I still go to criminal court to give evidence regarding to a lot of the.
So you know a lot of criminals. Maybe they don't like to know you, but they get to one way or another.
Right, yeah.
So tell me what's different about cybersecurity and crime versus other kinds of crimes or other kind of police work?
Traditional crimes, right? Very often, most of the traditional crimes, the culprit or the criminal must be present at the scene of the crime, right? I mean, if you want to commit a crime, you want to steal something, you got to be physically there, right? So, but for most of the cybercrime incidents, the criminal or the so-called hackers or the intruders, they're always remote from the scene. Now, obviously, some people may, actually physically enter into a room to hack into a computer and then leave. Yeah, that could happen, right? But most of the time, we know that they must connect it from a remote places.
Right.
Now, once they connect from a remote places, most likely that they are in different jurisdiction. So in two different countries.
So that makes it harder because most crime, or actually almost all crime, is national law.
Yeah.
There's very little international crime.
Right. And also, if I'm a criminal, I know that I want to attack a computer system in your country. I'll make sure that our government don't talk to each other.
Right.
Or maybe I could go through a third party's countries to yours, so that when you check it, you think, oh, it's from that countries you have no dialogue with.
So, for example, a cyber hacker from North Korea did an expose in one of the biggest business magazines recently. And he said, I was a hacker for North Korea. And when describing his job, he said, the first thing I did is go to China. And then I set up a company in China.
Yeah.
And then I set up a hacking operation from China, so it's not looking like it's part of North Korea.
Right. Or another thing is, I could initiate a crime from Hong Kong against UK, but go through North Korea.
Right.
And you think, oh, it's...
And I think it's North Korea, but it's really...
Yeah.
It's really just a smart guy who's hiding his identity.
Right, exactly. That's why for a lot of cybercrime, especially when you think about that from the security's perspective, right? How am I going to prevent all these people attacking my system? It's very different. You got to think globally. It's not like traditional, a lot of those petty cash crime, a lot of those crimes that we consider local criminals.
Now, what if you catch somebody committing a crime? And they have broken Hong Kong law, and you're in the Hong Kong police.
Right.
And you can prove that they broke this law, but they're not in Hong Kong.
Right.
Can you arrest them?
Yeah. At the present moment, a lot of government already changed their legislation to address that. But the difficult part is what happens if that criminal act be kind of truncated into different components. So, for example, let's say to commit an act, it involves 5 steps. Each step in a different country. Now, if you look at the steps itself, there's no crime. Not unless all 5 add together. You say, oh, gee, this is right.
So each piece is part of a conspiracy to commit a major crime.
Right.
But each element maybe, if it is a crime, maybe it's a minor misdemeanor type crime, not a major felonious act.
Right. Yeah. So For example, like DDoS attack, right? Distributed DOS attack.
Right.
So initially, the criminal may be
And
able to
DDoS means denial,
denial of service, distributed denial of service, right?
distributed denial of service. So a DDoS attack, distributed denial of service, is an aggressive act against a company,
Right.
and that's a crime.
Yeah. Okay. For example, let's say there's different computers.
Mhm.
Okay, they are poorly managed.
Right.
There's loopholes there. Okay,
you
people
found a
initially
way
you
in.
find a way to get in,
Right.
and you kind of
Is that a crime?
plan you plan something that it's a event or time trigger malware that you
Right.
plan in there, and just
Which
being dominant.
seems like a crime.
Okay, that could be trespassing, electronic
Yeah,
trespassing,
Yeah.
and you
okay.
didn't do anything yet. It's just play something there.
But it's a minor crime.
It's a
as
very
long
minor,
as
yeah.
you haven't triggered anything yet.
Yeah, not really anything, right? So
And for the company that you've then hit and you trigger it, you're using some of their computing resources, but they may say, yeah, whatever, don't
right,
care.
Right. And then not until, let's say, a particular date time or until a particular event, every computer trigger and then attack and send message
Boom.
to one computer system.
Now then your target is in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes if you kind of break those steps into 2 or 3 steps, each steps may kind of, yeah, maybe it's a very minor crime or maybe not even a crime, but adding together, aggregating it together, it becomes a very serious offense. And the victim would be,
And how does that relate to fintech? How does that connect into fintech?
Right.
So it's computer crime.
now for financial technology, right? They are part of they're part of the cyber world, right?
Right.
So whatever cyber attack to them is very vulnerable. Okay, so let's say if I set up a wallet or set up an online banking service, right? Now, the computer crime model that the very common one we use is the CIA model. It's confidentiality, integrity, availability. So we're talking addressing DDoS is addressing the availability issues. So whenever my service is not available, especially for banking, which is part of an essential service for people, if suddenly I want to make payment, and then suddenly if the whole payment system is under DDoS attack,
Right.
and that my money is there, I could see there's a balance on my wallet, I just can't pay. So it's very frustrating. It's and then just imagine, right? Or on the other hand,
I could
the attack-
imagine some kind of trading systems hit with a DDoS at the wrong time,
Right.
which you might be able to trigger
Yeah, definitely.
by software. Instead of triggering a trade, trigger a DDoS attack,
Yeah.
then hit with a strong
Yeah.
trade, then leave your target vulnerable to swings in currency
Exactly.
or other things. If you have enough capital to manipulate a market and do a DDoS at the same time, you might be able to really put a crimp into a bank.
Yeah, exactly. On the other hand, if you think of US exchange, if there's a lot of high frequency trader, if they suddenly within the market close period, let's say 5 minutes before the market close, boom, all the transaction, all trying to go through that in the
Right.
exchange, right, with high frequency. If the system is not big enough to cater for that, that's no difference from a DDoS attack. But
So I
on
don't
the other
even
hand,
know whether it's DDoS or whether it's just a lot of trades.
just it could be a trade, yeah, it could be a proper trade, or whatever. There's suddenly a market news boosts up. Let's say suddenly there was a war started in North Korea, and it's just
And this relates to intent. For example, I could say, let me trigger 50,000 computers around the world to do a low latency stock trade
Right.
all at the same instant.
right,
That could overwhelm an exchange.
right, yeah,
Now, each of those trades might be a legitimate trade for
Yep.
one share of stock.
yes, it could
It's
be
a
legitimate.
small amount. They're all legitimate trades, but they're all synchronized, all hitting at the same time. And while that's happening, I know I'm doing something else in a very different system that is a large volume, money moving thing.
Right,
I might be able to take advantage of
because
the system being locked up.
yeah, same thing. Yeah, I mean it's just like flooding the whole system. Let's say with suddenly there's a news, adverse news, just break up, and then people just respond to it. Now it's not online using a keyboard to do it, right?
Right,
Now we're talking about all these are robot traders.
right.
Once they pick up a news, immediately the computer would keep on. Okay, once they cannot make the deal, right? They fire the request to the exchange. If the deal bounces back saying that the deal not done, they immediately fire it again with a lower price
Right,
or higher
right,
price,
right, right.
And then you see the triggering off the whole market. Just
Right.
not only effect, it's like a snowball effect. boom,
Yeah.
and you flood the
So it
market.
looks like a DDoS attack.
Yeah, so that's why even in the fintech area, even for some of the legitimate trade, we have to look at the possible DDoS phenomena, not necessarily meaning that it's a criminal intent,
Right,
but the behavior could be very similar.
right. And the
Right.
issue is there an intent to commit a crime?
Exactly, yeah. And even
Or is this just coincidence?
Yeah,
That
or if
everybody's
it-
program looks the
right,
same.
right, exactly, yeah. So
That's
there's a lot of these issues that for cybersecurity you have to look at whether it's a genuine trade, high frequency trade, just because of certain things trigger everybody or the system to trade at the same time, which is genuine. It's just that your system cannot handle that capacity, or whether there is some malicious attack or malicious intent or whatever.
Okay, so being remote is part of the challenge for a law enforcement officer.